And here we go. It is the first edition of the Commish Chronicle. Better late than never. We're going to cover through week 4 here in the HFXHL 2024-2025 season. And without further ado, we're going to talk some power rankings. So let's dive right in. Starting us off in 12th, last year's champ Thunder Down Under. Last year finished 5th in the standings, and they won the championship versus Mr. Ninja Express. So, go from our championship to leading us off as 12th in the power rankings. Not a good look. They have lost their last 3 matchups to some teams that maybe you'd expect, especially last year's champ, to be able to beat. Obviously, there's a few players that departed Thunder Down Under in the off season that are a big loss to them, but still they need to get another win back on the board. Their key upcoming matchups are Grisky's All-Stars and Yaz, 2 teams that sit below them right now in the standings, and so such a good opportunity for them to secure a few more wins and move up into a playoff spot. They do currently sit 9th in the standings despite that 1-3 head-to-head record. Noteworthy, I'm going to do this for every team across the power rankings, what I believe to be the most noteworthy thing for their team. For Thunder Down Under, the most noteworthy thing would be that through 4 weeks last year, they were also 1-3 in their head-to-head matchups. They were sitting 11th in the standings instead of 9th, and they were 11th in the power rankings. So, these only mean so much here through the first 4 weeks. It's good to establish yourself early, but by no means does it mean you're going to be a bottom dweller when the season ends. So still lots of time for maneuvering with Thunder Down Under. As we move on to 11th, and we have our new team, Saiyan Elite. Last year, they were North Korea, and they finished last in the standings. That GM gave up their spot. We have a new GM in place, had a strong draft to start out, but off to a slow start here at the start of this season. Still lots to be recovered, and we're still early. But starting off 1-3 in their head-to-head, 10th in the standings right now. Key upcoming matchups for them, I would say, is Bettman Returns. Bettman Returns right now is just in front of them in the standings. It's a good testament to see exactly where Saiyan Elite might stand as we move forward in this season. So I look at week 6, Bettman Returns, as a big matchup for them. Noteworthy, like I said, they are under new management, and somewhat surprisingly, Saiyan Elite is actually first in the league in both save percentage and goals against average. And they're tied for first in shutouts and tied for second in wins. This means that their goalies have been doing extremely well. Maybe they haven't been getting as many wins as they might like from some of these categories, but the reality is if their skaters can step up and start delivering on that end of things, on that end of the categories, the Saiyan Elite could look very, very good as we move throughout the rest of this season. But for now, they're going to be 11th in these power rankings. Moving on to 10th, and we have the replacements. Now, I'm probably going to get some flack for this one, and it's no hate against the replacements in particular. However, last year, first of all, they were 8th in the standings. They had a massive first round upset in the first round last year to take down the number 1 seed Curiosity Kill Jabrinkat. They ended up losing in the 3rd place matchup versus Messi Guarantee in their first trip to the playoffs since joining HFXHL. So a great last season for the replacements. They are currently 22-22-4 record in a 3-way tie for 4th in the standings. Again, literally identical records for 3 teams, all for that 4th place spot in the standings. And even with that being said, they only have a 1-2-1 head-to-head record, and their only win coming against the team that I currently have in these power rankings, dead last, Thunder Down Under. Other than that, they've lost to both Grisky's All-Stars in week 4 and Bettman Returns in week 1 and a tie to Halifax Highlanders. So significant opportunity there. And some key upcoming matchups for the replacements. Opportunities as we have this week against Mr. Ninja Express in week 5, and then week 6 doesn't get any easier against It's Our Year, the two teams that are currently tied for first in the entire league. If the replacements can prove that they can hang with some of these top teams, then they will make a significant jump up these power rankings. However, very tough matchups, and we'll see what they can do. Noteworthy for them right now is they are a league worst goals against average and save percentage. And from my perspective, if goalies improve, they could jump up these rankings. And currently the replacements do lead the league in hits, so they're getting those depth stats from their skaters, but not quite getting it right now from their goalies. If they can improve that, I could see them improving within these rankings. But for now, they are still tied for 4th in the standings, so in a good spot, despite a very average start. 9th is Gretzky's All-Stars. Now, Gretzky's All-Stars, I know they thought they were going to be last in these power rankings, as they call themselves IR Island. Some of that started to change, but last year they were 4th in the standings. They lost in the first round against Thunder Down Under. This was the first time Gretzky's All-Stars not only lost in the first round, but it's the first time in HFXHL history that Gretzky's All-Stars didn't make a semifinal, and it was only the second time that they didn't, or sorry, no, it was the first time they didn't actually make a final in HFXHL history. So again, a pretty solid year last year for Gretzky's All-Stars, finally losing that first round matchup. They are, however, 1-2-1 in their head-to-heads, and despite all these injuries, they did beat the replacements in week 4 to secure their first win of this season as they start to get healthier. Key upcoming matchups for them, week 6, 7, and 8. They face 3 of the current top 4 teams in the HFXHL standings. Now, obviously, that could change by the time we get to week 6, 7, and 8, but as of right now, that's the way it looks. 3 very, very tough matchups upcoming for Gretzky's All-Stars. If they can hang with them, they will continue to hold a strong spot within these power rankings. Noteworthy for them, the first 3 weeks of the season, they were holding at least 5 IR eligible players, all players that you would not want to drop and allow somebody to pick up for free off waivers or free agency. So they've just been kind of riding that, and despite that, they do still have a respectable record despite being last in the standings. They do currently have the most winless categories, i.e. 0-4, with 3, and that's in goals, hits, and blocks. Again, we can point to some of those IR players, not maybe giving them all those depth stats, but we'll see what happens as Gretzky's begins to get healthier. They've just been so good in HFXHL history to see them staying at the bottom for very long. As we move to 8th, we have Halifax Highlanders. Halifax Highlanders last year, they were 11th in the standings. Their record this year, 21-21-6. For a 1-2-1 head-to-head record, and currently 7th in the standings. Now, they are actually in a 4-way tie as far as points go, but technically the 3 teams above them all share the exact same record, which is slightly better than Halifax Highlanders. So they hold on to 7th on their own. They had a tight loss to Mr. Ninja Express in week 4 and had a significant win over Gretzky's All-Stars in week 3. But we're still looking for that consistency from Halifax Highlanders to prove that they can hang in the playoff category. Their key upcoming matchups, week 6 and week 7, against Thick Nick and Uri, and then against Say and Elite. I look at these 2 matchups as being key because we've got Thick Nick and Uri, who they are currently tied with for points in the league, as an opportunity for them to move up within the standings, improving again that they can hang with the top teams in this league. And Say and Elite right now among the bottom. Halifax Highlanders should be looking for that to try to be a win for them, but again, we'll see what happens. Noteworthy for Halifax Highlanders, they do have currently a league best plus minus and a league worst shots on goal. Everything else, they're kind of middling, some near the bottom, but for the most part, they're very average when it comes to a lot of the categories thus far through 4 weeks. One of the most interesting things so far with Halifax Highlanders, and they're gonna feel I'm calling them out on this, but since the HFXHL began, they have only made the playoffs once, and that was as an 8 seed in 2021-2022. The other years, they have finished 12th, 10th, and 11th. So Halifax Highlanders is in desperate need of a revamp and to get themselves going here, get into a favorable spot to make playoffs and make a legitimate run. Although, you know, if you're a betting man, the one position they haven't filled that kind of goes around where they've been is 9th, which would be just outside the playoffs. We'll see what happens though. As we move on to 7th, and it is Yaz. Again, maybe a bit of a surprise to have them up in 7th. They're currently 10th in the standings, but a big reason they are currently sitting in 10th, and that record is incorrect. Apologies for that. That must be the record from last year. They are currently 2-2 in their head-to-heads, but again, a big reason they're as low as 10th in the standings is because of that 12-0 loss to Mr. Ninja Express in week 1. Since then, they've been very respectable. Their only other loss coming to the other team that is currently in first in this entire league, which is It's Our Year. But the last 2 weeks, they beat 2 solid teams in Thick Nick and Uri and Saiyan Elite. So still lots to come here from Yaz. Key upcoming matchups. I look at it with Thunder Down Under and Betman Returns. The 2 teams that are currently just ahead of them in the standings in week 6 and week 8. Of course, that could change by that time, but 2 teams that are right around them in the standings, and they should be taking that as an opportunity to try to secure some wins. Noteworthy, I have to come back to that week 1 big loss to Mr. Ninja Express. The week 1 loss, that was the first 12-0 loss in HFXHL since December 6th of 2021. It was also, amazingly for Yaz, the first time Yaz had ever had double digits scored against them. And that's throughout the entire first 4 years of HFXHL. Now, HFXHL has had as many as 6 12-0 scores, but 4 of those were against teams in the first year or two that, quite frankly, were not as engaged, were not setting their lines, and so bigger scores and bigger lopsided losses were much more common. So I consider this to be the second true 12-0 score. I believe the first one, don't hold me to it, on December 6th of 2021 was Messier Guarantee beating actually It's Our Year at 12-0 in that particular instance. But just a fun stat for us to look at. I think Yaz does have a strong team, and I think they could still be very, very good going forward. But again, it's got to be the lopsided loss of weeks 1 to 4. I mean, I got to do it. I got to do it. It's a lopsided loss, massive lopsided loss, and selfishly, I'm still gloating about it. All right, we move on to 6th, and it is Curiosity Killed Debrincat. Last year, a dominant regular season, record-breaking season from Curiosity Killed Debrincat. The first time a different team other than Messier Guarantee finished first in the standings, and it was the best regular season by any team in HFXHL history, only for them to receive a massive upset loss at the hands of their replacements in the first round last year. So Curiosity Killed Debrincat coming back with a little bit of extra fire, wanting to run it back and make a deep run in the playoffs. But for now, they are in a 3-way tie for 4th in the standings. They have both lost and beaten 2 of the top teams in our league. A tough loss last week to Thick Nick and Uri. So again, kind of a middling team right now for Curiosity Killed Debrincat. Week 6, I look at it as a big upcoming matchup for them. They've already played the 2 top teams in the standings. Messier Guarantee currently sitting in 3rd in the standings. That's a good test for Curiosity Killed Debrincat as we move forward. Noteworthy for them, they are top 3 in all of the goalie stats. They are at least top 3 in all goalie stats, but they are ranked bottom 3 in both assists and points. So the consistency has been there, but my joke here is that if their skaters start passing, get some extra assists going, Curiosity DeBrincat could start moving up the standings. As we move on to 5th, and it is Thick Nick in Uri. Last year, for the second year in a row since joining the league, they came 2nd in the standings. Another very, very strong year last year, only to run into, for also the second year in a row, a number 7 seed Mr. Ninja Express, where they lost in the first round. So coming back once again, very similar to Curiosity DeBrincat, Thick Nick and Uri. They are looking to get some revenge, run it back up the table, finish with a strong regular season, and make a deep run in the playoffs. They're also, again, in a three-way tie for 4th in the standings. They've been very consistent. Losses and wins have been against teams both above and below them in the standings right now. So it's really hard to put a finger on exactly where they stand. But I do look at 2 key upcoming matchups for them, being week 6 and 7 against Halifax Highlanders and their replacements, 2 teams that currently, as far as points go, are tied with Thick Nick and Uri in the standings, despite holding a slightly worse head-to-head record thus far. So 2 big matchups for them. They should be looking to win those, and that will start to separate them from the teams below them in the standings. Noteworthy for them, very interesting stat I found. Right now, they have the worst overall record across goalie stats, as they are combined 2-10-4 in goalie stats. So only 2 wins out of a possible 16 across goalie stats for Thick Nick and Uri. If not for that, they would be higher in the standings. Their skaters have been middling and fairly consistent. If their goalie stats improve, this team will improve undoubtedly. So that's where they currently stand. As we move on to 4th in these power rankings, and it is Bettman Returns. Again, this might be a surprise to some people, as Bettman Returns is currently 8th in the standings. However, let's just look quickly at last year. They came 3rd in the standings. That ties their best ever finish in HFXHL history. But they lost to perennial powerhouse Messier Guarantee, who was the 6th seed last year for the first time. So again, Bettman Returns comes back looking to make the playoffs once again and make a run. They have a very strong head-to-head record, 2-1-1, but sitting 8th in the standings, all you have to do is look no further than their massive loss last week to It's Our Year. Almost another 12-0, but it ends up being 11-0 to It's Our Year. Other than that, they beat a very strong Mr. Ninja Express team in week 3, and they did well in the weeks they need to against the replacements and Grisky's All-Stars. So if not for that big loss last week, this team would be significantly higher in the standings. And looking at their key upcoming matchups, Thick Nick and Uri and Messier Guarantee, 2 teams near the top of the standings right now. It's a good test for them, and those are 2 matchups that they should be looking at to win as we move forward and cement themselves as a top team, and further justify me putting them 4th in these power rankings. Noteworthy for them, they're top half of the league in 6 of the 8 skater stats right now. They've been very consistent, except for that week 4 blip, and they have had some key injuries thus far this season. If they start getting some of their injured players back, look out. This team's going to be very strong. As we move on to 3rd, it's Messier Guarantee. Last year, 6th in the standings, won 3rd place game versus the replacements. Again, another overall very strong year for Messier Guarantee. Their record currently, really the top 3 in the standings right now have separated themselves pretty emphatically. 25-18-5 with a 3-1 head-to-head record. 3 wins in a row the last 3 weeks, all against teams that are below them in the standings, and realistically wins that they should have had. Key upcoming matchups, they face this power rankings number 4, 6, 7, and 8 seeds in the next 4 weeks. So all teams that, based on the power rankings, they should be beating. So we'll see if they can do that as we move forward. Noteworthy for them right now, Mystic Guarantee, they're the epitome of consistency, middling across skater categories, winning records across all the goalie categories. Last season was the first time, interestingly, that they did not finish first in the regular season in HFXHL history. So the first 3 seasons of HFXHL, they finished first. And even then, coming in 6th, they still made it work in the playoffs to secure a 3rd place last. Second in these power rankings, it's our year. It's our year, 9th in the standings last year. Tragically missed the playoffs on a last-second stat correction, ousting them and allowing the replacements to get in. Great record so far, and an emphatic win last week against Bettman Returns to really vault them up the standings. Currently tied for first in the standings, and the key upcoming matchup I'm looking at is, we're still several weeks out from it, but week 8, Mr. Ninja Express, we'll see where these 2 teams stand come that time. But 2 teams that are currently in a dead tie for first, identical record, identical points. See what happens there. Noteworthy for them, they have a losing record in only 2 stats so far, and it's goals and wins, goalie wins, despite being second in goals total. So they have a losing record in goals, but they actually have the second most goals in the entire league. So that's just an unfortunate stat. Otherwise, they'd be even higher with their record. Interestingly, about their week 4 win over Bettman Returns, 11-0. That was done without Connor McDavid being in their lineup. He was injured for their full week. So that just speaks to a very balanced team, and I do find it funny that Crosby, Ovechkin, and McDavid are all on this team. If Crosby and Ovechkin can continue the fountain of youth, this team will stay very good. And last but not least, first in these power rankings, totally unbiased, I swear, Mr. Ninja Express last year finished 7th in the standings, lost in the finals, making it all the way to finals against Thunder Down Under. It's their 3rd podium finish in a row, 3-1 in their head-to-heads. The upcoming matchup, same thing as It's Our Year in week 8. Most noteworthy for Mr. Ninja Express, they're ranked first in 6 out of 12 categories across HFXHL, and they are ranked 2nd in another 3. So they are top 2 in 9 of 12 categories right now across HFXHL, and they're top 2 in all skater categories. So if their goalies were even just a little bit better, then their record would be even better than it currently is. Their only losing record across all 12 categories is currently in goals against average. So Mr. Ninja Express rightfully in first in these power rankings. As we move forward, some I'm going to be showing is aside from just showing the overall standings, I'm also going to show the head-to-head standings. So if we did the league differently and it was purely head-to-head, this is what the rankings would currently look like across everything. Oh, Saint Elite, I missed out there. And one more time, just showing you the power rankings of first through 12. Mr. Ninja Express in first, second, It's Our Year, and third, Mystic Guarantee, as we follow through with everyone else. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you at the end of week 8.